Hello, everyone. Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello.
And this week we have Julian Winters. Hello.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
We are too. And I think they love you. Everyone's been watching our recaps, hopefully. So if you haven't, you need to grab it. It was so much fun.
Thank
And I think we were talking before we started. Anybody around here who's watching who might be from the Atlanta area like we are, this book was so much fun to read because of that. The setting was so real, and every time I saw something, I was like, I've been there. And especially in Athens in the beginning, because I also went to UGA, so that was so much fun for
Yes.
me.
I think you were wearing a UGA
I
t-shirt for
was
one
one of
of
the
our
weeks we were recording. I
recaps.
was like, I've never felt like this shirt was so appropriate.
I should have broke out one of mine.
Yeah.
I bought quite a few to wear while drafting, so
Yeah.
I should. Oh, that's fun.
Get you in the right headspace.
Yes, yes.
So that actually leads perfectly to my first question, which was because it was so much fun seeing all these things, I was wondering, was this story always going to be set in Georgia, or is that something that came about later on, like after you had the characters in mind?
No, actually, I knew kind of from the beginning that it was going to be set in Georgia. One, because it was my first time writing adult romance. I had all these other things to stress about. I
Yeah.
couldn't stress about the setting. Also, it had to be something that I was familiar with, so that way, as I'm working on, tropes and these different plot devices and whatnot, I can at least say, oh, well, I know where this is, and I know how to describe this because I've been there. So it was that, but also because as an avid romance reader, I've always just wanted to see something set in Atlanta. I think it's, despite our terrible traffic, I think it can be, such a romantic city, such a fun, lively city, a perfect place to set, a book that revolves around these big, elaborate, extravagant parties.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to do that. I just wanted to write a love letter to a city that, you know, coming up, being queer and being black, that kind of embraced me in different ways. So it made it easier for me to write Denz and Braylon stories set in a place that I knew could allow them to feel that way while exploring this romance.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Also, like I guess the idea of so many we talked about like either small town or in contemporary or even like fantasy books or things like that where the world it might be even made up. Like I had thought about the amount of like brain space that might take up
Yeah.
to like
Yes.
figure out how the city works. And but it did feel very much I haven't lived in Atlanta my whole life, but it did feel like my experience here with just like the even the traffic and like the issues with like, oh, do we need to just stay down here at this point
Yes.
or
Right, like an
like
Uber across town on Saturday night. Get real.
Yeah. Not happening. It's not happening. I was like, when I first started writing that particular scene, I was like, is this going to be believable? I was like, but yes, anyone who's lived in a major metropolitan city knows that Saturday nights, you're there or you're somewhere else, but there's no in between.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's true.
I was also curious what made you decide to move from YA to adult. Um
Yeah.
especially with the romance in there. 'Cause I think your YA books also are relationship and character based.
Yeah, yeah. My YAs do have, I guess I always like to think of them as romances, but I guess they're more of
Yeah.
like with a romance subplot. Um, but yeah, so for me, it was always the plan to write adult. I came in my first book, Running with Lions, my first YA I wrote, and while it was out there, trying to see if anyone wanted to, acquire it, I sat down and said, well, you have to have something to occupy your time. Otherwise, you're just going to keep on refreshing that email, and that's not going to work for you. So I sat down, and my actual third published YA, I wrote that as an adult rom com.
Oh, interesting.
That was what I wrote in between waiting for, to find out if Running with Lions was going to be acquired by anybody. And so I had, known, okay, this is something I wanted to do, something I'm going to do. But then as the more YAs I wrote, the more I really got into that space and
Mhm.
wanting to make sure that I fulfilled the promise I had to myself, which is when I was growing up, I didn't have books with a lot of diversity, a lot of, black or brown characters, a lot of queer characters. So I wanted to stay in the YA space long enough where I felt like, okay, I've, fulfilled that promise to myself to make sure the next generation didn't feel that way. But in the back of my head, adult romance was always, always there. And so eventually, thankfully, my agent one day when I was sending her ideas of what I was going to work on next, she was like, "Well, you published 5 YAs now. Do you think you maybe want to write this adult romance?" I was like, "You know what? That's what I needed. Sometimes you just need somebody to just shove you in the direction you want it to go in
Yeah.
order to do it." So full credit to my agent Tale for saying, "Let's go ahead and write the adult romance," because otherwise, I think I would have just kept thinking, "It'll happen one day," and it won't.
She's a
That's
good
so
agent.
relatable.
Yes.
Helping you do the thing you wanted to do from the start.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Um, it strikes me that the characters in this book like could have started, like you could have written their YA story if you had wanted to.
Like their college
Um,
story. Yeah.
yeah, or like new adult, but we meet them in a time when they're actually like they're grown, but they're still trying they're like in a spot where they're trying to figure out like if they are the grown-ups that they
Yeah,
expected to be or wanted to be.
yeah,
And to me, for me, it was like a really it was a really interesting spot and one that I don't read very often, but one that I, as a person who questions things a lot, I often find myself being like, is this? And am I? And so I thought it was really interesting to watch people navigate like a relationship and trying to figure out like, did we make a mistake? Is this like how to live? Even though they're already like grown and kind of on their way to really have to stop and investigate whether they're living the life they want to live.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say I thought felt like that was a really special
Yeah.
part of your book.
Thank you. I 100% went in knowing that, especially with Denz, that I wanted to create this. He's a wonderful, charismatic person, but he's also so messy, and so uncertain. Even though he projects this confidence and this, I know what I'm doing, and this was the plan all along, because that's who I was in, my 20s, in my 30s. That's who I am probably now still, is that I have these voices in my head, whether it's the adults in my life at that time, or whether it was, parents, family, whoever, that said, this is the path that you're supposed to go down. And that was the path that I would walk down, because obviously they knew better than I did. They had already, lived life and whatnot. But that's not the case. And I feel like that's not the case for a lot of adults, where we know we have these things that we're passionate about. We have these things that, drive us and motivate us, but that's not necessarily the things that, keep us happy, or the things that, make us want to get up out of bed and go do the thing. And so I wanted to really kind of look at that for both Braylon and Denz. Braylon gets to it just a little bit quicker than Denz does. But yeah, I just feel like that's a big part of adulthood, is that everyone expects you to know who you are at 18, because especially here in the United States, once you hit 18 and you graduate high school, you are supposed to be this fully formed adult. And that's not the case. You still have a lot of hurdles to get over. You still have a lot of, bad choices to make, and, things that you'll regret, and, things that you will also learn from. And that's what I wanted to do with Denz and Braylon, especially, this notion of, maybe I'm not the person I need to be for you at this moment. That doesn't mean I won't grow into the person that, we both need for each other later on. And that's why I did that with Denz and Braylon's second chance romance, was to show that, yeah, sometimes, relationships don't work. It doesn't necessarily mean that we weren't meant to be. It just means that we weren't who we needed to be at that time.
Yeah.
I feel like Braylon, like because he didn't have like as much family, like he didn't have people who were close to him that he felt beholden to in the same way I think that Dennis did. He was like, well, I had to go to therapy and figure things out because but I mean, there's still that bit of like wanting to make your parents proud and wanting
Yeah.
to like make sure that you're I mean, I still saw that in him, but I feel like Denz had um his people were very present,
Yeah.
and even his aunts were very like um vocal about their even sometimes he heard it when he wasn't supposed to, sometimes it was right to his face, but he knew like they're looking in his eyeballs and he knew that they were like, I don't
I
know
don't
about this,
know. Yeah.
and so it like there was a different kind of pressure I felt like for him,
Yeah, for sure.
um in wanting, but also there was a point in the book that I had to tell Megan, I was like, because the way he received what his father was saying to him about like what the expectation was turned out to be not right. Like it like part of the reason why he didn't get what he wanted was because he like dropped things and his dad was like, oh well, you're not ready to take on this responsibility, obviously, because you can't prioritize. And I was like, but what?
Well, and then because he picked the sister because she delegated and because she and
Didn't
yeah,
drop.
Marielle was like, it, Dance was like so like flabbergasted by this whole situation, which was so perfect because yeah, I feel like even the dad, it's his business, it's his other child basically, and like he didn't necessarily know what he was looking for as like to be the thing to know it was time to pass it down
Right.
until it happened. And then he was like, "Oh, that's the thing. I see it." Like the thing that he could never himself do, which was the whole problem.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think definitely with Denz's family, I needed to write this family that was very much um, like my own family, I'd say. I have a lot of family members that are, well intentioned with the things that they say, but the way that it comes out is not very, helpful. It's not very kind. But I feel like that's, family sometimes is they feel like they immediately have this power to be able to say things to you, whether they, understand the impact or not.
Like
And so
unfiltered is okay in a way
yes,
it
Yeah.
wouldn't
right.
be.
Right. And it's, it's not always the best way to go about things. But yeah, with Denz's dad, I did want to, kind of show that again, no matter what age you are as an adult, sometimes you just don't even have your own plan figured out.
Yeah.
And that
Mhm.
trickles down to, the children in your life or whoever is in your life that you have that kind of position of power over. And so, yeah, I wanted to show that, yeah, like Denz thinks he doesn't have it together, but his own family doesn't. And they
Yeah.
get pushed into situations that force them to finally make the decision they should have been making all along.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
with Braylon, of course, that happened naturally because he lost his dad. He was alone in the world and in another country where he barely knew anybody. And like that forced his hand to have to get there quicker, um, which was a great foil against what Denz was going through. That was
I
awesome.
did want to ask like what how you decided to make their because to make their family dynamics the way that they are. Like I read a lot of historical romance, and a lot of times it'll be like the parents died, all of them. And
Oh. Like Sarah McLean, I think she always asks on Fated Mates, like, can you name a romance where both characters have all their parents alive? Like, name one. Like, and nobody can. Like, there's usually at least one parent of
Yeah,
out of four who is gone.
or they're just like terrible, so we're not,
Yeah,
it gets,
yeah, we're
yeah,
but
not acknowledging them.
yeah.
yeah. But in this case, it wasn't like I felt like Braylon had lost a parent, had a parent who was like a good guy and doing his best um for his child and like trying to like be his kid's like advocate
Yeah,
even when it was an unpopular opinion.
yeah.
um and then Denz had like a whole gaggle, um which was like great and then also difficult, but I feel like it was an interesting dynamic to me,
Mhm.
the way that they integrated into each other's and also how it forced them to be with each other.
Yeah, I knew Denz and the Carters from the very beginning. And I knew Braylon, but I didn't know Braylon, the extension of Braylon. Like what else is there in your life? What are your friends? What are your family and whatnot? And then so I was like, oh well, I'll go in, and all he has as an adult is like his father. And then like in the original plan, his father never died. He was
Okay.
there throughout. And it just wasn't working. And I can't remember if it was again my agent, or a great friend of mine, Adib Karam, might have suggested this. But one of them said, "Why don't you kill off the dad? Why don't you make that the you know their meet cute in the coffee shop when it's like, oh, you're back, I can't believe this, and it's like, yeah, my dad died. Like that starts this tension between them,
Mhm.
that is also a part of the previous tension they had. And I was like, I'm a nice guy, I don't like to kill characters, but I was like, okay, let's try this out. And then actually,
Pull out the knives.
right. You slice, you gotta go.
Yeah.
And but I think it worked out really well for me when I was writing, because yeah, Denz has this family that is very overbearing in some ways, but also super loving in other ways. So he has that support. And Braylon, is this person who grew up with just his dad, lost him when he got, out of college, and then so he has nothing. So it is this nice juxtaposition of, what is it like to have that really big family? What is it like to, be an orphan pretty much at a, as an adult? Um, and I love that I could play on, Denz loves his family, but often needs the peace and needs, to get away from that. And Braylon is his peace. Braylon is that opportunity for him to just sit with himself and sit with the ways that he's feeling, the ways that, he wants to change and be better. And for Braylon, it's this, I'm forced to become this kind of person. So I do it all on myself. I do it all alone. I don't depend on people. But in actuality, kind of loves being a part
Mhm.
of Denz's family and loves
Yeah.
having, what he's lost return to him in some way.
Right.
So that's why I went in that direction, and I'm really glad I am, because I think it really works between them, that they have both have these wounds that really interconnect, in ways to make them whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. And even Jens's like he had issues with Braylon's dad, which now obviously are going to be unresolved.
Right.
But I do think there's a lesson in that, and probably for Braylon as well, that like I think there's a point in the book where he's like, I wish we would have been able to, that I would have been able to tell him how he felt about how some of this stuff went down. But
Yeah.
um therapy, but also I do think there is a area of growth for them there to be like, well, maybe not everything needs to be tied up neatly, like maybe
Right.
sometimes you make a choice because it's the best choice for you, and then you can figure out how to handle the family later. And it
Yeah.
is interesting because a lot of, as we learned with his sister, sometimes when you do that, people are happy to see you happy, even if you're making a choice that isn't what they would have asked
Wanted
you
for
to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely wanted to kind of show that, sometimes we do have to live with what happened in the past. There's no going back and changing that. There's no going back and fixing that. It doesn't have to be a pretty neat bow. But I also love that, um, the realization for Braylon was, I didn't do this before with my dad, but I need to do this with you, Denz, now, and tell you how I really feel about the situation that we're in. And I loved that moment between them when they're slow dancing and Brandon's just laying it all out there. This is how I really feel,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because I think it was such an important moment for both of
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't really have an expectation of how it
them.
was gonna, like, he didn't ask for an answer, and he was just kind of like, here is my bit,
Yeah.
and if you have your moment, I'll maybe I'll see you never again, but
Right.
at least you
But
know.
at least you know.
Um,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thinking about other side characters in the story, of course, two that we started to love were Jamie and Jordan, and obviously there was things happening that as the reader you caught on to a lot earlier than Denz did because he was so like lost in his own mess. Um, and so I see that the pre-order is up for their book. So is there anything you want to say about that?
Oh gosh, yeah. I I went in knowing that I wanted to hint at something going on between Jamie and Jordan. I didn't know if anything would come of it, but I was like, oh, this will be a little fun little side thing going on here and whatnot. And I loved, the moment I started writing Jamie, I absolutely loved him. He's just this fun, dedicated himbo who just, absolutely loves his best friend.
Yeah.
And then, Jordan was this other character who I, kind of wanted to just give you little snippets of, but not really, give you too much of, just in case there was a chance I was going to write this book.
Yeah.
So yeah, Last First Kiss is their book. It is, I'd say, similar in ways to Denz and Braylon, because it is a bit of a second chance romance for them, but it is also wildly different. They have these other reasons why there's tension between them in the past. And it is also very much, while Denz is super confident, he is out, he knows who he is
Yeah.
when it comes to his queerness and everything. Jordan, on the other hand, is not. And
Yeah.
so it was really fun to kind of write this self discovery book for him. And then the ways that Jamie completely changes who he thinks that, and who Jordan thinks he's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot of fun. I had
So fun.
probably more fun writing their book than Denz and Braylon. I love Denz and Braylon. I love their romance, but I think people are going to really, really, really fall hard for Jordan and Jamie's love story.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited for it because I think we talked in one of our recaps about how, like, how I read that whole situation was that yes, Denz was stuck in his own mess, but also, as far as he knew, his cousin was straight. So he
Right.
didn't see it because he didn't even imagine that that was like a possibility. So it just like flew right under the radar for him. And, there was no blinking light until there was. And then he was like, oh shit. So,
Yes.
and I love that. Like, I love when there's
Yeah.
like little secrets that you get to pick up on as the reader, and you're like, oh boy, you're about to find out. Like, that's so fun.
Yeah, because like Dent has this whole like inner monologue about how he's always been the only queer person in his family and how hard and whatnot that was. And that,
Yeah.
it goes back to because he assumed, because he had slapped a label on everybody without them actually ever telling him, who they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's explored quite a bit in, Jordan and Jamie's story also.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I did think it was super fun and like in hindsight too, like some of those first interactions where they're like on that fake date,
Yeah.
where Jamie and Jordan's like looking at the hands and looking at and Jamie's just
And
like, oh my God.
and it was like his
I
eyes looked horrified while he was trying to smile and be like, great.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I
so fun.
mean, they were very fun on
Yeah.
the periphery, but I was hoping that you would write them. So I was happy to see the pre-orders up now. So
Yes. So you
Yes.
guys go buy
I
that.
could,
Yes, please pre-order it. Yeah, and you'll see all the Carters again in it as well. So if you loved
That's
any of
awesome.
the other side characters, and I think they love you, chances are they make a big return in Jordan Jamie's book.
Awesome.
yay.
So I think I'll ask you the things we always ask people that we talk to, and mine is, what is your favorite trope to read?
Oh, it's 100% fake dating. I
Okay.
could read every version of a fake dating romance and never not like be all giggly and happy at the end. There is something about it. I don't know what it is. I know how it's going to end every single time. I know when these big moments are going to happen, you're going to realize, oh shit, I actually, like you in this way. And yet it gets me every time. I'm always sitting there shocked, like, what? I never saw this coming. I totally saw it coming. But it
Just
just
love when they're like, I'm such a good actor. I
right.
you're like,
Wow.
Can you not tell? I don't really want to kiss you. What? Yeah, so fake dating is, yeah, it's my jam. I don't know what they put in it, but I am addicted to it.
That's fun. And the best moment is always when their best friend or whatever is like, "Oh yeah, so fake."
Yes,
And I
yes.
loved when
somebody,
Jamie had that moment in this book. It was so great.
When they're
yeah,
deadpan,
but you
just
do
like,
have to love that
oh,
with
I'm
him,
just
everyone. Den's,
right,
everybody was like, with Den's, everyone was like,
Yeah.
you think
Yes,
you're a good
super
liar, but
fake.
no, sir, you are
no.
not.
Come on, let's be honest here. We all saw through that.
That's fun.
Hmm.
I think I feel this way about the educational kissing kind of stuff.
Oh
Anytime
yeah.
that they're like, I will teach you.
Just
I will
out of the
help you
goodness of my
find
heart.
your, I will use my superior powers to show you. I don't know why but I have that similar like, okay.
Yeah.
But
You're like, I'm
well,
ready. Let's go.
spoiler alert, that definitely happens in Last First Kiss. So
Yay.
you definitely get that moment.
Oh, Julian Winters writing just for us.
Yes,
I know.
magic.
You guys just give me a list of things that you want to see in the books, and I got you. It makes it so much easier for me. I don't have to think about anything. Oh, I just check this off, check this off, check this off.
Yeah.
Love it. The question that I usually ask our authors is what if we were flying on the wall, could observe you while you're deep in your writing, what would we see?
Oh gosh. You would see if I'm drafting, you will
Hmm.
see a very messy desk, like chaos, post-it notes everywhere, reminders and different things, different notes. You will see me drinking some sort of caffeinated beverage,
Right.
whether it's tea or an iced latte, or in my worst moments, a Red Bull. You will probably see me lighting a scented candle to pretend that I'm setting the mood, but in actuality, it's not doing anything for me. Um, and you'll probably see, you probably see me write like type out like a sentence and then pause for like 5 minutes, just thinking like, okay, now what comes after that? I do a lot of overthinking while writing. So yeah, lots of that.
That's
Tap,
awesome.
tap, tap, delete, delete, delete.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
That's my
it's so
writing.
bad. I was just talking to someone the other day who had a fantastic suggestion. Some people, instead of like typing out their manuscript, they'll handwrite it because that makes it harder for you to go back and delete, delete, delete because it's already written on the page. Like, or you're just going to scribble the whole time. And so I think I need to like lean into that a little bit more. Is handwriting things so then I can't just self edit the whole time. So then I'm forced to actually write something out.
I could
Hmm.
see, especially if you're like stuck a bit somewhere, like to just do something different to see
Yeah,
what shakes out. Like that makes total sense to me.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe next time we chat, you can
Yeah.
tell us how it's going.
Extol
You'll
the
Yeah.
virtues of
you'll have
handwriting.
a new answer.
That's
You can
awesome.
shake out your ream of
Right. You're like,
I
get one of those rolls of butcher paper from IKEA and just like do like an old school scroll.
which would be so cool. But then I just think to myself, after I've done all that, then you want me to type this up
Right.
too?
Didn't I have to type it
No,
too?
absolutely not.
No, you'd have to hire somebody. Be like,
No,
here, take this.
here, transcribe this for me, please. I cannot. I just
I
can't.
Save
hope
my
your
life.
writing
I
is
cannot
very
do this.
Right. I just feel like I'm doing like double or triple the work. No.
Yeah.
nice.
That,
That's
yeah,
okay. We're
that
going
would
to
be the
do
hardest part, I
efficiency
think.
for 2025.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Julian. We really had a great time talking to you. We loved this book.
Yes.
We hope everyone goes out and grabs it and pre-orders book two, Last
Yes.
First Kiss.
Yes. Please
Yeah.
be relaxed for
And
So
where can
cute.
the people find you?
Yes.
You can find me on my website is julianwinters.com. You can mostly find me on Instagram these days because I just cannot jive with the other social media platforms at the moment. But on Instagram, you can find me at Winters Julian, all one word. Yeah, and that's usually where I'm hanging out.
All right.
Awesome.
We'll find you
Thank
there.
you so much. And
Thank you all so much
everybody,
for reading.
yes, and everybody will see you next month.
See you.